A couple may, a couple won't. So I think it's just a cautious approach. They're all, those players you mentioned are all around the 30-year mark. They don't have to do a lot. I don't believe you have to play practice matches. A lot of our blokes didn't play practice matches. It's for young kids, they've got nothing to prove. Jody trained out there, as did Scotland, as did Cruiser. Waite didn't, so Waite's behind those three. Who do we play this week? I'm going to go from here into a meeting to decide what the 27 is. So we'll just go from there, but I think they're all tracking reasonably well. And, you know, we've got, as much as we want to do well, it's so important we get the game structures right for round one going forward. And it's not just about round one, it's going forward. It's a marathon we're in. And I don't expect to come here and go, these are the 30 rules or 40 rules or 10 rules, and they're all gathered and thought of the same way. So we've got to get through that process. Well, it's a step up from what it was. Duty of care lays with the Players Association to recommend on medical evidence what's best for players to get through a season and gets through as many years as they can in football, so that they've got it's a job environment, a work environment that they can get through without being overexposed to unnecessary game time, particularly early in the season. Our practice matches run 3 by 12 against one another, so and it's tame. Then we go into 2 games, and we don't have to play everyone. We had 34 players, which I think is a good rule this last week. The out-of-bounds touch is ridiculous because that puts additional pressure on players and umpires. This time, if we're going to have the 80 rule, please let us coach. So if I want to use 50 in the first quarter and 10 in the last, let me coach the side. So again, there's too many restrictions on coaches, 2020, 2020, that mightn't suit us. Well, a young side, a very young side, may want to go, well, we've got a real chance against last year's grand finalists. We want to use 50 first up to stay in the game, because at half time the game could be absolutely blown apart with us only using 20 because the kids run out of legs, and we'll take that gamble in the last half. I might want to hear, which has got a sliding scale, if you like, of age group, might want to say, well, we'll use 10 and we want to come home with 40 or 50. So we've got to get little bits and pieces like that. But the actual numbers, I'll put it this way, 2 or 3 of my players would not have played this weekend had the rule existed from what they said, which was 18, 3 and 1. It was impossible because I've got players that should only play half a game because they haven't played any football. Players that should play a quarter of a game. Now, what can you do? You can't play them at this level unless you've got that capacity. Now, fortunately, they've jumped on and given us another 2, which is borderline. The 2020 restricts again at least one of my players playing this week because he couldn't cope with it. Oh, well, if I had my way, it's about 130. I don't see how it's damaging to anyone. I look at the game as closely as anyone, and I have to keep looking to see who's on the bench. We know there's a clutter in the 30 seconds from a goal, and basically people on TV don't because they see an ad. And 4, generally under the current rules, 3 will change quickly. No one notices. When the TV comes back on, there's 18 players on, playing 18. But when you're restricted, you automatically put additional pressure on certain players, particularly early in the season, and sometimes your selection process in November is going to be different because you now know you don't. I think players that are 6-minute players who just get on and just burst and really give us something to look at, they're now going to be 8 or 9 players. So you may not have the same type of game player playing. He'll play, that player will play because he's good enough, but he won't be playing the same dynamic type of game. So we're changing everything, really, which is a little bit of a shame in many respects. I can understand the NAB Cup being something different, and I appreciate that for the supporters. I think the 9-point goal is outstanding. The last touch over the line is ridiculous because it just murders players. They can't go a yard in the last quarter, and that's when you have total fatigue, you have breakdowns, and so we've got to be careful about that. What's the other rules? What other rules were there? There's not a lot of other rules, really. I think protecting the head's fine. But again, we've just got to be careful how we do that. Like sliding in, I've been dead against sliding in since 1987 when I saw Doug Hawkins do his knee. That was a catalyst for me to say that we've just got to get rid of that notion of that. And here I am saying, don't change the games. I'd change it that you can't pick the football up when you're on the ground. You should not be able to touch the football. Oh, sorry, pick it up. You can tap it out, knock it out, kick it out, but you can't pick it up. So, and that would eliminate a lot of the things that we have. But again, that's a very big rule. I think the centre bounces, the circles are outstanding. Protected the life of ruckman going forward. That's fantastic. So there's a lot of good rules. NAB Cup rules. You know, razzle-dazzle stuff, fine, have it. After every goal, shoot some fireworks in the sky. But bear in mind that what we as coaches are trying to do is to get ready for round 1, to get to round 22 intact. And I can't physically play one play this week because of the restriction in the bench and the interchange. And there's other players who will now come in, because we've had a rethink, that could play half a game or a quarter of a game. No, I don't think we need to say that, because that's probably, I would say it's pretty common right through around the competition. Those that I've spoken to say, okay, we'll go back and play with Northern Blues, or we'll play with someone else that can, and we can judge how long they play for.
That rule change suggests about not being able to pick it up when you're lying on the ground. Is that to reduce the congestion you're talking about? Or?
Well, it's twofold. Reduces congestion, and I think it eliminates players that slide in, and what it does, it protects. It incidentally protects the player who actually has got his head over it, picking it up. So therefore, we eliminate that by saying, tap it out, kick it out, or don't touch it. So you eliminate that then.
You suggest that to anyone?
I would say the Coach Association probably 10 years ago, and I would have been a regular one, in and out for the last 10 to 12 years. Yeah, it should have been absolutely forcefully suggested by the Players Association for Health and Safety that anyone who is negligent in sliding in has not got to care for his fellow footballer. When you slide in, there can only be one. The player jumps out the way, or he gets hit, and the potential thing for damage is quite high. We've got to eliminate the players that slide in or crash in when they're standing up and crash over the boot to get the football. It's a duty of care. I'm a servant of the club. I'm not on the board, I'm not in administration, I've been employed as a football coach. I will use a phrase from a very good friend of mine from Collingwood. I wish I had thought of it before him, but it's a good saying. Let the baker bake the bread. I'm not here to administer, I'm not here to be the board member, I'm here as a football coach. I'm one part of the football division. What do I make of it?
Yeah.
Oh, good. They're a good football. So I'm delighted really to be playing Fremantle and then Adelaide. I just think that if we're going to learn anything about ourselves and what we need to do, it's against one of the best defensive sides in the competition, Fremantle. Very, very well versed and very strong at the football, and a good football club. And Adelaide, they play, I think, on the other spectrum. They're different again. They're good defensively, but they're very good offensively. They run well, and we'll be playing them on their ground. And we got challenges. We've played in the heat, and let me tell you, that was a unbelievable day in Sydney, or in Blacktown last week. We got a 6-day break, and we got a 6-day break. So this is great preparation for our play group to get used to a bit of adversity, and also playing a variety of football sides in the way they play. It's terrific for us. A coach that takes on a job gets it. Again, I'll use an old adage that I learnt from my first football coach: better to please the fool than tease the fool. And I'd be suggesting that there wouldn't be too many players taking Ross on in his, and I'd be very surprised if too many players want to take me in what I want here, because it doesn't do you any good. We mightn't get it right, but we're going to get it at least on our terms. So that's the way you've got to do it as a coach. You can't be here to be happy for everyone to say, oh look, I'll do it my way, and because that's the way I do it best. No, you do it this way, and we live and die by this way. You can't have part policies, part game plans, part structures, which we did in the first quarter of last week. Then we started to get out of it and get better, and we got better as the game went on. But it's the old load up. You load, when people are under pressure, they fall back into a safety zone, into a comfort zone. They fall back into old habits, and that's something that I'm prepared and know that this is going to take some time to implement. And I've got to be patient, and unfortunately, patience is for the dead, so it doesn't really suit me, but I'll have to live with it. Well, as soon as we get it, the better. I can't judge that. I'd like it to happen overnight. Oh, I was under the impression it was going to be done pretty quickly, so yeah, it's nothing surprising. I think it's terrific for the football club. He's a wonderful player. I think he's got plenty of years left in him, and that's up to Chris, but it was never any fear in my mind that he would re-sign with the football club. Yeah, that's a very good question. I don't know whether there's really any answer to that. Look, it was just the year you got knocked out. I got knocked out my first game. I don't remember my first game, but perhaps that's the answer. I don't know. But you don't play... Football is a physical sport. It can be at times a violent sport because there's 18 versus 18 in a very... sometimes in a very confined area, and they're just going to go and get that football. And there's a lot of accidental clash of heads, this sort of stuff. You don't take the game on thinking I might come out of this. We're all carrying some scars of some description, whether they be physical scars, mental scars, knees, ankles, and you suffer from them. Let me tell you, when you get to my age, the aches and pains are across the body you just take for granted because it's part of playing. The headshots, of course, are different because they can have a compounding effect in other areas, and I'm all for the protection of the head. And one of the most important things is that we are making ground up. We're no longer accepting it. The rules have changed. We've protected players from those shots. And I think that's the first indicator. It was some years ago when we said, we just got to protect that player. Then we said, we've got to protect his head. So we are making ground. I think it's going to have to come back at some stage to the medical people to say, we've now developed this model that can fit over the head that softens the blow. Now, that'll come along at some stage and we'll accept it, or we'll say, no, our game was built without it, we don't want it. Okay, so that'll be thrown at us. So I know that was thrown at me at Footscray, so I've been coaching nearly 30 years, so it's 25 years ago, 26 years ago, I reckon I got that from a doctor. And it wasn't his field though, but he said, you've got to start getting your boys to wear helmets. But as we keep going, we're going to get more and more information about players who are now being tested at the end of their career and then into that retirement stage, which is going to show up a lot of things that we probably didn't know about. Yes, the states have been they're forerunners in this. They're a long way in front because a lot of their players lead with their head, even with a helmet. And I've been following that. I think a bloke called Ronnie Lott was the one that sort of got to me. I'm not too sure. It might have been a Raider. But he just head all the time. And they said how brave he was and how great he was, how hard he hit. Now they'd be saying, oh. So we've had a change of mindset on that bravery compared to what it should be. Far more alert to it now. Because you just say to blokes, grow up, get out there again. You know, it's not like a good headshot when you get knocked up. I would say like a bloke like say Brett Heady copped an absolute cracker one day. He just didn't want him to go back there. Even though he wanted to go, he just couldn't have. And I think the doctor kept him off the ground because the test looked like it was okay, but we said no, I don't think we want him back there. As we went into it, we started to go, no, the doctor's got this call, and it has to be the doctor's call. Now the doctors have been trained up in other areas to help his decision making, and as much as a coach says, and this is where I think we can be better. If we have another player, we can say that while that testing program's taking place, if it is 10 minutes, what we're doing, we're finding out that 10 minutes of that player being on and someone else, we don't know whether the interchange can be used or not, or the sub can be used. We're really eating into the time of, the game. So perhaps what we've got to start to look at is if there's going to be new rules implemented and we take a player off for a 10 to 15 minute testing, we've got to have the capacity to put a player on for that 10 to 15 minutes, either a sub or a second sub. And then, we're starting to get somewhere because at the moment, we all panic about that time the player's off. Make no mistake about it. We can say all we like pre-match. During the match, we're going, we're getting really tossed about in the middle there because we just haven't got the resources to replenish it. So we've got to look bigger and better and more outside to accommodate all new rules. Is he going to be... I'm starting to think not, but I'm not convinced he isn't. So he's on line ball at the moment.
Yep. Is he the only one in that situation?
Andrew McGuinness won't play, clearly he's got that knee. I would suspect that's about it, really. Yeah. Right now, touching wood. Thank you.